And on to, good evening, hope you're well. And on to video number 3. So in this one, I'm going to cover undercarriage, which is quite lengthy actually. The office in the tub. All right, okay. So undercarriage then. Again, it's one of those areas that the front part ain't too bad. The two main undercarriage struts, according to instructions, can look quite difficult. So let's start at the front. It's two halves, okay. GCU, general cleanup, and then a strut. Now that strut goes into a recess on the landing leg, so you've got to make sure that the end of that strut is clean. And when I say clean, I mean flat, because the recess that it sits into is flat. So you can't have any burrs or rough edges or anything. So again, you know, a good sort of tip, a good technique to make sure that that is flat, if you're right-handed, is to hold a sanding stick in your left hand, hold the part quite firmly in your right hand, and move the part up and down the sanding stick that you're holding instead of doing it the other way. The reason that I'm saying that is because if you hold the part in your left hand, sorry if I'm waffling, and hold the sanding stick in your right hand, if you are moving the sanding stick over a stationary part, you're putting stress on that stationary part, and it's got more of a tendency to break than if you do it the other way. Okay. That's what I found. So locating and make sure that that's nice and clean. It's very important. Right, next picture. Let's look at this leg. There's a small recess and a large recess as well, and that is for the brace. Now, that brace, it is directional, and if you look at the part, the brace, okay, you will see that there is a fat lug. Can I call it a fat lug? A thick lug. Can I even call it that? For God's sake. A big lug. There's a big lug and a little lug. You don't need me to tell you. Big lug, big hole. Little lug, little hole. But again, GCU, make sure that that's all nice and clean. Otherwise, it's not going to fit. All right. And you can get that on dead easy. Then there's a cylinder. I think it's some kind of fluid cylinder, oil cylinder, lubricating cylinder. That has got a little stub on it. Okay, and again on the strut, on the leg, there's a tiny little recess. And once that's put on, it goes, the tank sits to one side. Now I am going to put a picture on, but it's really, really blurry. I can remember taking it. I think I was low on blood sugar or something, because I'm just like shaking like a shitting dog. So it's not the best picture that you're going to see. Apologies for that. That little tank is carpet monster fodder. So again, thin nose tweezers, or lick your fingers, because the saliva from your mouth acts as a sticky agent. All right. And the pin goes into that hole, and once it's done, like I said, the tank sits to one side. Once that is dry, you're onto the spring arms. Now, you have to be careful here, because it's, I know this is going to sound really stupid, but it's like a 3D part. But when you look at the actual part, it's like there's a part missing. It's really, really strange. Just be careful, okay, where you're going to cut it off. Don't rush into that cutting off thing. Look at the part in the circle there, and look just above it at sort of like 2 o'clock. There's the actual part. All right, that's how it should look. It's tricky. It is tricky, okay. Again, level 5, so you have to be careful. If you look next, you should see part 147 and that's in relation to the actual landing leg. That strut, it's a link, and there's one for each side. They are quite difficult to remove from the sprue. They are even more difficult to clean up. They are difficult to hold in your fingers or your tweezers. They are difficult to glue into place. You're getting the picture, aren't you? It's difficult, all right? I'm saying it's difficult. I think if you've got spindly fingers like, cotton bud sticks, you're fine. My fingers resemble Wall's pork sausages, and they're absolutely enormous. So, tricky for me. I'll say it's tricky for me. On to wheels and tyres, don't need me to tell you, do you? So, I won't. If you're going undercarriage down, just a little tip here for you. Again, it's all about making it easy. Find part J145, and it's one part that you need to cut into 3 parts. Cut off the back end and add the 2 pins. If you do that now, you can toss that into your built bits tub. So your 2 pins, D153s, Delta 153s, they are carpet monster fodder. They are absolutely minute. I don't know how your 1 in 72 guys do it. But if you do it now, it just makes it easier. It makes it easier in future, okay? So how do I paint my wheels? There's a million ways, isn't there? You've got your way and I've got mine, and we've all got our own. But actually, while I'm here, I might as well tell you how to do mine, because how I do my wheels, you might not do them that way. Now, if you're one of those connoisseurs that uses masks, brilliant. If you've got a circle cutter, great stuff, etc., etc. But this is aimed at the average bloke that's just got a tiny little brush, a shaky hand, and we just have to make fit. What you need to do is, what I use is the lid off that takeaway tub that I've got all my bits in. And what I'll do is I'll get my paintbrush and I'll dip it in my black paint, whether it's XF85 or X1 or whatever. And I'll put 1 drop of paint onto that little bit of plastic tub. And then with another brush, I'll get a drop of thinner. And I will add 1 part thinner to 1 part paint. Then I'll add another droplet of paint and another droplet of thinner. And basically what I'm doing is I'm making a water solution that's black. Now, what you can do then is, once you've mixed that up on your little palette, and you've built your tyre and you've painted it white, so that your inner wheel is white. On this particular kit, there's a tyre rim between the tyre and the wheel and the hub. And if you just get a bit of that black solution that you've made on your tiniest little brush and just drop it onto the tyre wall as close to the rim as you possibly can without touching the rim. Now hold that wheel in your left hand, and if you just tilt backwards and forwards, side to side, that little droplet of paint that you've just dropped on will work its way towards the tyre rim, and then the capillary action will draw it around the circle. Okay. Another tap on a different part of the wall close to the rim, and another tap and another tap and another tap. And what you'll find is that paint goes round the circumference of that rim. Just let that dry for 5 minutes. And then with undiluted paint, tap the wheel wall, tap the wheel wall, and that, call it thicker paint, that thicker paint will draw itself towards that thin paint that you've already put on. Okay. And continue to do that. That's dead easy. Main landing gear. Watch for ejector pin marks, because if you don't clean it up, they'll not go together. Once you've got them together, use a blade in a scraping motion to get rid of that seam if you haven't got a small, thin enough sanding stick. It's a tricky part. Once you've built the two main legs, there's two struts to go on. And the part that locates from the strut to the leg is the most awkward shape that you've ever seen. What I would suggest is that you do loads and loads of dry fitting, and the part that marries onto the actual body of the bird, pop that into the recess. Just do one side at a time. And then on your strut, if you have a look at the struts, there's a little bulge on one side. And if you look at that picture, you can see that the strut, the bulge goes on the outside. That's how you know which direction that they're going. That's one of the little indicators, all right? So on them struts, parts B157 and B156, if you have a look at them, little bulge, all right? So dry fit that with leg in place. Once you've got your leg attached to the bird and you've got your strut and your tweezers and you've given it some GCU and you marry that in, just get your glue ready and just don't attach it to the bird, the hole in the bottom of the wheel well. Glue the strut to the leg with one little dab of glue. All right. Let it dry for 5-10 minutes. Then take it out, and then you know that the angles and dangles are right. Okay. B158, 167. Look at the direction. When you come to put that on from underneath, obviously, you can see I've had to draw a little clock face on. It's pointing up towards 10 p.m. and that's for driver's side, I think it is. So for opposite side, it's going to point towards 2 p.m. Then you've got some more attachments, and again, I've used a clock face so that you can see. If you've got your wheel bar, that's the bar that the actual wheel sits onto, that lug. If you've got that facing at 3 p.m, which is over there to your right, and obviously it'll be 9 p.m. over there for the other side, you can see where all those struts go. All right, that's as simple as I can make that particular little part. Make sure that you clean all your mating surfaces, otherwise you're going to struggle. There's flash and ejector pin marks and all sorts. Moving on. So that's undercarriage, okay. Before we move on, you can build it, you can prime it, you can paint it, and then you can put it to one side. I don't put the undercarriage into my bits bin because it's too fragile. I just put it to one side, just above me where I sit at my station on a little shelf, and I know it's safe, okay. But once it's done, it's done. So, office. When I start the office, I always mask the canopy first, and I use tiny little thin strips of Tamiya tape. I don't use bendy tape. I think I covered that in video 2. Thin strips of yellow Tamiya tape will suffice as long as you cut it thin enough. And I start with edging the frame and then obviously fill it in from inside. Front windscreen, exactly the same. As far as office is concerned, I know that there's some navigator instrument sort of panels that he has to see to. And in this particular build, steps 78 and 79. So I do that. And again, that gets built and not painted or anything yet. It's just built, tossed into bits bin. If you're going to rub the seat belts off these seats because they are absolutely shite, I would suggest that you sand them off while the seats are still on the sprue. because I know it sounds really stupid, but there's a lot of strength in those gates that hold the seat to the sprue. If you remove the seat and you start sanding it down, there's a tiny little piece that holds the headrest to the main seat where his arse is, where his back is. It's very, very fragile. There's a tendency to snap. So if you are going to add photo etch seat belts and you need to rub them off, sand them off, or if you're going to add masking tape seat belts like I did, you need to sand them clean while they're on the sprue. Don't need to. I'm only trying to help you. Okay. When you come to take the sides off the sprue, again, next picture, just cut that upper lug off first, all right, because it's the flimsiest gate. So basically, if you cut off the other gates first, then that seat is going to be held onto the sprue by its flimsiest part, its weakest link. So if you cut that weakest link first, the strength of the seat is still on the sprue on the other gates. You'll see what I mean. Assemble the seats, very, very easy. It's two sides, a back, a seat, and not much else really. And then onto the tub. So we're going to cover tub. I've got 5 minutes left. So glue your wheel bay underneath and your back brace as well. You can stick that on. Your control panels, a good clean up, please, front and back. Get it all built. It's dead easy. You don't need to. You can see, I'm going to put some pictures on now. Look, you can see there that I've built it all. Excuse me. But then I've disassembled it all to paint it. I didn't just leave it all there, even though I'm not massive on office areas, tub areas. I built everything, but I didn't glue anything into place. I still took it all out. Your control panels, like I said, good clean up front and back. Disassembled it to paint. I started with a primer coat of X27. I think that's a dark green, a black green, something like that. And then an XF20 on top, and then some inlays of XF1. Dry fitting the seats. I just folded some masking tape, put them in my own seats. And I've actually got a couple of buckles left from an old photo etch set that I just sort of slipped onto there. So that what seats done, that they were no problem. As far as tub's concerned, once it's obviously you've primed it, painted it, glossed it, you can put your decals on. I'm a Solon Set user. I know that Solon Set struggles with Revel decals. I know that there's stronger solutions available, but at the minute, because we're in the middle of COVID and I can't get anywhere, and I do prefer to do a face-to-face shop when I'm buying stuff, I'm stuck with Solon Set. The blue one that you put down first, fine. The red one, the setting solution, you might need a couple of coats of that, okay? Give it sort of 20 minutes. I'm saying coats, end of your paintbrush, literally just dab it on. Just dab it on. You don't need to bathe it. And it will conform, but it might take 2 or 3 goes. Okay. That is wrapping up video 3, I think. So, just for my notes, so video 3, we've done undercarriage and we've done office and the tub. So, you should have a little plastic tub now that's full of bits and cracking on with rest at build. Let's crack on. See you in next video. Cheers.